Now this is what I call spending a big budget.
Big budget. Huh?
Yep.
It's even got the red iPhone on the box.
New phone.
So cool. We're unboxing it video. So like taking it out of all the boxes and everything.
We are. I've got to do this bit first.
I thought you meant from when it's like that. Dad's new iPhone is looking awesome. Dad's iPhone is looking awesome. New iPhone is looking awesome.
Shh. Quiet, Dragon Master.
You haven't started the video, have you?
It's been running all this time.
Oh.
You're ridiculous.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's nice. Cool new filming capabilities. Shame about the budget. There's nothing left now for other graphics. Oh well. Fans of the Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40,000, thank you very much for joining me for the latest 8th edition Newsflash. And today is 1st of May 2017. So I hope you are able to enjoy the May Day bank holiday wherever you are in the world and whatever significance it has for you. If you're not able to do that because of reasons, or if you have to work because of your job, well, I hope when you do get to this, I hope you enjoy this little bit of a delve into the latest news from Games Workshop regarding 8th edition. This post went up yesterday night, I believe, and it's to do with what is arguably the most significant phase in the game, which is shooting. So before I get into that, a little update on the budget. As you can see, I've completely blown the budget by changing my phone contract to a new handset. Even after I squeezed a bit of money out of Mrs. Leakycheese to give my old handset, I've still got no money left. So I've had to unfortunately stick with a sheet of paper and some Sharpies. Now, I did have the idea to try do a bit of, you know, graphics, and I was going to kind of like turn the title into like this sort of this metal plaque. And I kind of drew it out, and then I thought, oh, I'll put some counter shading on, but then it started to look rubbish. So, and then I thought I'd put some little lighty bits on it, and just made it look worse. So apologies for that. But then to try recover, I did like these little, I made these more interesting by putting a circle of colour around my little bullet points. So I hope you like this. Shooting. So I will leave a link to the Warhammer Community post in the video description, so I strongly recommend that you go have a look at that for yourself as well as watching this video. What do we now know about the shooting phase? Starting with shooting basics. So the first point, we know this already from the previous post around weapon modifiers and profiles in effect. Certain weapons will inflict multiple wounds per hit, and we are going to see the reintroduction of armor save modifiers. So in other words, if a Space Marine has an armor save of 3+, and they get hit by a weapon with a -1 save modifier, that save gets reduced to a 4+. Right, so that's what we already know. Now to the new stuff. The first point is you can now move and shoot in all circumstances, with 2 exceptions. Firstly, if you are falling back, and falling back is if you begin your turn in close combat or melee. If you opt to fall back, you then can't shoot. Likewise, if you advance, you're not allowed to shoot. And advancing is where you opt to do your standard move plus a random run move, all in the movement phase. So those are 2 circumstances you can't shoot in, and this has some significant consequences for infantry heavy weapons, as we will get onto into a moment. And another rule which has been introduced, and this is a very intriguing one, is that once you are at a range of 1 inch or less, so it's almost close combat but not quite, you can't shoot with anything other than a pistol. Or perhaps I could say you can shoot with a pistol at short ranges of 1 inch or less. And this is reflecting that when you're that close, a rifle or a heavy weapon is very ungainly to use. However, a small pistol could still be used at that range. So that's interesting. That's going to certainly affect how the battle works out. And I guess what we also don't know is, if you're at a range of 1 inch or less, are you actually considered to be locked in melee, or do you still have to be in base-to-base contact? So the next post I think we're going to get is charge. So perhaps over the next couple of days, as we find out about how melee will work, we might make more sense out of this rule. To me, they all sound logical and straightforward and reasonable. I like the sound of them. Okay, so the second point, right, to hit modifiers are back. And I've put yay! Another return to the roots of first edition here. Back in the day, various things would affect accuracy when you're shooting. It was taken out. That was a simplification that made the game simplistic. And I've never been a big fan of not having to hit modifiers when you shoot, particularly when you combine that with how cover and arm saves have worked in Warhammer 40,000 for a long time. But for 8th edition, we are going to see a reappearance of these, and they gave 2 examples. So if you move and shoot a heavy weapon, you will now suffer a -1 to hit penalty, and also if you're firing at a target obscured by smoke, you'll get a -1 to hit. I suspect there will probably be more. This one around moving and shooting heavy weapons is a really big one. Heavy weapon units carried by infantry, unless you have the relentless rule, you sacrifice a lot to have to move. So if you get your deployment wrong, you lose a lot of firepower. And if you're playing a game that is, say, 5 turns long and you lose a turn just to redeploying, you can only hit on a 6 with snapshots. That's a lot of wasted firepower and devalues those troops considerably. So this allowance to move and shoot a heavy weapon with just a -1 to hit penalty is a huge boost to infantry troops, and I see this as lifting the effectiveness of infantry significantly, particularly the heavy weapon squads within those units. And it'll have a relative effect as well, so troops with high ballistic skill will suffer less from this penalty because it's a fixed penalty. So if you've got a ballistic skill of 3, or as it's going to be in the new world, a fixed to hit roll of 4+, if you move and shoot a heavy weapon, you go to 5+, so you've had a 33% reduction in accuracy. If you're a Space Marine and we do the same thing, you go from a 3+ to a 4+, so you've only suffered a 25% reduction in accuracy. So what it means is the more skillful the soldier is to start with, proportionately they're going to get less affected by these modifiers. I like this. This for me has been missing from 40k for a long time, and I'm really pleased to see the reintroduction of to hit modifiers. And then it gets even more radical as we move on to the final point, which tells us about the reintroduction of cover saves. Oh my freaking goodness me. You know, I've even just gone nuts there because I was just so gobsmacked about this. So what have we been told? Cover now provides an armor save bonus. Wow. Only certain units can use some cover, or certain types of cover. So let's think about the first point there. At the moment, cover works in a really simplistic way in 40k. If you're in cover and you have an armor save, you only get the best protection. So let's take the classic example. A Terminator Marine in a ruin only still gets his best save of 2+ against, let's say, a bolter shot. The fact that the Terminator is largely obscured by lots of rubble and wrecked building gives them no additional benefit. What they're now saying is that there is going to be some benefit from that, and this is really going to change how the game plays, the shooting mechanics of the game, particularly if you play games with plenty of cover, and I certainly do that. There really is going to be a strong benefit of seeking cover to improve your armor saves. So let's imagine, I don't know, I guess there's going to be a variety. Basic cover will have to provide a +1 pip on your armor save. If you're a Space Marine, that would say to me that your standard powered armor save goes from a 3+ to a 2+. Now, if you're being shot at by small arms, you're saving on a 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. Awesome! Finally, you know, and that just feels right to me. If you've got an armored soldier in cover, they're even harder to kill, whereas at the moment, the Space Marine gets no benefit whatsoever for being in cover, unless he gets hit by a weapon with a AP value high enough to beat his armor. Then the save defaults to the value of the cover. Not so anymore. However, I think this won't only boost the protection of infantry, it will also add value to very high armor penetration weapons. And I suspect we're going to see some weapons which have -5, -6, -7 save modifiers. And those are the guns that are just going to blast through any armor and any cover at all. So yeah, interesting. There is also a note in the article to say that certain weapons will have an ignores cover rule as well. I'm absolutely fascinated by this, and I think it's a great way of dealing with cover. Could have put the benefit of cover onto shooting to hit penalties, but instead they've chosen to roll it into the armor save as well, which is, well, let's see how, I guess we'll have to wait and see while we get all of the weapon stats and all the armor profiles to understand exactly how this works. But given that we're going to have modifiers that can improve your survivability when you're in cover and also reduce your survivability in cover, that sounds like a good way to deal with the whole mechanic that you can have various things playing off against each other. And it also sounds like it will simplify gameplay, certainly in my mind. And anyone who thinks that save modifiers are difficult to deal with, well, I just don't agree. Most war games I play, and I've played a lot, will have to hit modifiers or numerical values that modify a roll. So I don't think it is a difficult concept that slows down play. What slows down play is having lots and lots of repeat dice rolling, complicated, awkward turn sequences, very complicated rules that frequently require cross-referencing that are difficult to remember. Those are the things that slow down play, not simple numerical modifiers. I digress. Now, the final point, only certain units can use some or certain types of cover. So the example given in the article is that only infantry will be able to claim cover from a crater, for example. So in other words, what it's saying is something which provides a relatively low profile and is difficult to exploit, well, only infantry are able to sneak into that cover. A dreadnought, for example, can't, and a battle tank like a Land Raider, Predator, Leman Russ, Rhino, whatever, certainly can't. So I think that is a nice little change to the rules, and another thing that's going to play to increase the strength of infantry in 40k 8th edition. And probably that will make things simpler to play as well, because there's going to be fewer units that you actually have to worry about working cover modifiers out for. It's probably going to be a whole host of cover types that vehicles won't be able to claim and dreadnoughts won't be able to claim. So that will just simplify resolving attacks against those units. And most importantly, it feels realistic. And for me, from what we've seen so far, there's a consistent theme in terms of a logic that's going into the 8th edition rules. They seem realistic and they seem believable. That they don't need to be complex rules, but they need to be well thought out rules. And so far, and this reinforces it more than anything so far, that's a thinking that seems to be in 8th edition. I'm positive. I think we're nearly there. I mean, they give 2 examples of weapons that have an ignore cover bonus, Chaos Noise Marines, and also the Nova Cannon variant of the Leman Russ. I'm sure there'll be more. The number of weapons that have the ignore cover rule, I think, will be important, and hopefully we won't see an over-proliferation of that capability. One of you guys commenting on the last post, I believe it was Zipokovic, yes, Zipokovic raised a very good point around the mortal wounds mechanic, and his observation was that he thinks that is too common for certain units, certain armies in Age of Sigmar. So I guess the same thing applies with an ignores cover rule as would with the mortal wounds. It's a good mechanic, however the army designers are going to have to apply it with moderation to ensure it doesn't dominate the meta. Let's put it that way. That's a normal phrase, isn't it? Dominate the meta, or unbalance certain forces significantly against others. So that's something we need to see more of to understand the impact on the overall game. What I would hope to see is that every force has access to a few units with the ignores cover rule and a few units with the mortal wounds cover, so everyone has access to the capability. So that's the latest on the shooting phase. This is a really big one. 40k, more than anything, is a ranged combat game, although it has a significant melee element. Ranged combat is very important. I like the look of this lot. It's very 1st edition. It goes right back to the start in terms of the thinking. At the same time, though, the rules seem simple but logical and well thought through. I guess the kind of the caution you would think around this is seeing how these good ideas are actually applied into the army list overall. The army list writers making sure that they balance the forces and don't over proliferate potent capabilities into the new army lists. So yeah, so that's everything. Let me know what you think on these changes to the shooting phase. I think this is, as I said, this is very significant to the game. Please do share your thoughts and we'll get some discussion going around that. I will be posting another update tomorrow when we are apparently going to find out about the charge phase. Thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you later, and goodbye.